Everyone assumed that Bollywood has made a comeback when Ruhi hit the theatres, but the real test of whether the Indian audience will come storming into the theatres for pure commercial Hindi films happened this weekend when the Sanjay Gupta written, produced and directed film Mumbai Saga released. The film, which stars John Abraham and Emraan Hashmi in lead roles, going head-to-head with each other, is an extension of the genre in which Sanjay Gupta has already done several films. The Sanjay Gupta special or traits are something that the audiences are privy to, but I'll elaborate on that later. The film focuses on Amartya Rao, played by John Abraham, and his rise from an ordinary man who takes up guns and the life of crime in order to provide a better future for his brother and rule Mumbai. The film is set in the 80s and 90s as Bombay transforms into Mumbai, and the city was notorious for its gangs and massacres happening in broad daylight. As slowly the gangster gains prominence and influence in the city, he makes many foes that lead to a bounty being placed for 10 crores and cross paths with an encounter specialist in the form of Savarkar, played by Emraan Hashmi, to do everything he can to eliminate Rao. The cat and mouse chase and the politics involved in the grand scheme of things forms the storyline of Mumbai Saga. Here's me telling you the good and bad aspects of the film in no particular order so that you guys can ultimately decide whether to watch it in theatres or not. The standout performers. It's very important to understand that this film is a John Abraham show. The film, which is based on true events, follows more or less the journey of Amartya Rao. So much of the heavy lifting has to be done by John Abraham. He is an interesting figure that way, who has the ability in moments to surprise me. The sheer physicality of John on the big screen lends to this intimidating presence that is ideal for what commercial mass Hindi cinema requires. John, through this film, channelizes what he successfully did as Manya Surve in Shootout at Vadala. He especially shines in action sequences and moments of rage, even though he has the tendency to shout almost to a screeching level in order to communicate angst. It works for the medium in which the film is showcased. It is in the lighter and emotional moments where the limited range of an actor like John gets exposed. I'm one of those silent observers of a performer like Emraan Hashmi. I still stand by the fact that his best performances in his filmography are the ones in Shanghai and Tigers, but the future lineup of commercial films that he has in store really does make me wonder whether he'll get his deserved respect finally. Irrespective, he gets to show off in the second half of this film, and honestly he does as is required from the script. His cheeky laughter and smug look at the actions of the criminal sells well in theatres. It isn't, however, a performance that will be remembered in the future months or years to come, as there's so little to do. But as I witnessed this film, in almost a packed theatre, the one actor that constantly developed laughter and whistles from the audience was Amol Gupte as the antagonist Gaitonde. Amol Gupte is so effortless with his comic timing and delivery that every scene he featured in represented why people love what is termed as dialogue-bazi in commercial cinema. Trust me, he steals the show whenever he comes on screen. Even Mahesh Manjrekar puts forth a credible and convincing performance as the politician who carefully utilizes his pawns. Similar tropes and aware audience. There was a time in the early 2000s where I considered Sanjay Gupta to be one of the coolest directors in Bollywood. In retrospect, I actually understood that it was the lack of exposure I had to global cinema that actually made me sing his praises. A lot of Sanjay Gupta's filmography, or at least the ideas, are borrowed from some of the most celebrated international films. From Kante to Musafir to Zinda, they were all borrowed concepts. But while this is an accepted fact by now, he has made a name for himself with the gangster genre set in Mumbai. What is undeniable, however, is that you have seen this film. It isn't really any different from the mafia or crime thriller set in Mumbai that you have already seen. Actually, it doesn't come close to even the classics or the commercially successful ones, even the ones Sanjay Gupta himself has created. The film has Sanjay Gupta's staple sepia green tinge visualization, which is rationalized as necessary for the gangster genre. But we have all seen films that communicated the violence, angst and crime of the city of Mumbai without this greenish yellow tinge, and successfully so. I don't understand really the reason for it, but I guess the director will stick to his vision. The film has an over-reliance also on the background music, and the sad case is that the dialogues are also not so hard-hitting or even quotable as memes on Twitter, so a lot of the dialogues are delivered and the BGM kicks in, but the impact is lackluster. Dialogues like "तूने बेटा नहीं बाप पैदा किया है." A journalist asks, "क्या उसमें आपका हाथ था?" and Manjrekar says, "हाथ नहीं, लात था, गान पे लात." Or the funniest, when a father-in-law refuses to sell his ancestral property, the bahu goes, "चिल्लाइए मत ससुर जी." There are many unintentionally funny moments in this film. Don't even get me started about the trope of characters finding people while an item song plays in the background. It's become hilarious at this point. The Honey Singh song placement in the movie is so abrupt, it's actually amusing. You know what you signed up for. The important point about this movie and while I write this piece is that I know the movie I am going in for. So while I manage my expectations, I acknowledge that I cannot have the sensibilities of a ship of Theseus while going in to watch a Mar Java, right? But my only issue is that even while knowing what I'm going in for, I was disappointed at even those commercial tropes. The action in the film has this over-the-top quality of movies like Satyamev Jayate, and while John looks menacing as ever, I'm more of a fan of what he did in films like Force and Rocky Handsome. There is a precision and quality of choreography that was top-notch in those films. This is more or less a lot of people flying around as John just flicks his wrist. Also, you would be naive not to notice that the iconic bathroom action sequence is literally borrowed from the action scene from Mission Impossible Fallout. What is the theme? And forgettable appearances. You know, I wondered while watching the film that what is technically the genre of this movie? Is it an out-and-out action film? Well, they're just like 3 full-on action sequences, so it's more of a crime thriller. And what it terribly missed was the 2 primary characters having a go at each other constantly. The sad reality of a film like Mumbai Saga is that it doesn't fully utilize its biggest strengths together enough at all. John Abraham and Emraan Hashmi. There is one scene of both of them sharing dialogues with one another, and it isn't enough to generate more animosity between the 2 characters. The reason for the payoff being so beautiful in a crime thriller like Once Upon a Time in Mumbai is because of the time spent with characters like Sultan and Shoaib. The relationship developing into resentment and anger was organic, whereas in Mumbai Saga, it just comes across as a task at hand. Also, I have to say, a lot of the supporting cast is terribly underutilized. I was so happy to see actors like Sunil Shetty and Prateek Babbar, but they have barely anything to do in this film. So while the movie does have an ensemble cast, only the standout performers that I've already mentioned have meaty roles to deal with. The final act of the film could have really explored how the loyalties in such a landscape are constantly oscillating. You know, people in power or who have any influence who have to look over their shoulder constantly. The film in its final act lacks that sense of shock as it only provides the main twist in passing rather than really delivering it with a bang to the audience. While I acknowledge it's important to judge this film with commercial cinema sensibilities, I think it would be justified if I created a tier list of mafia films set in Mumbai and where they stand. If Satya and Black Friday is in the God tier, and Once Upon a Time in Mumbai, Kameene and Shootout at Lokhandwala Paisa Vasool, and well, Once Upon a Time in Mumbai Dobara is Ghar Chalo, then I think Shootout at Vidala and Mumbai Saga fall in the same category of theek hai, but just in moments. You tell me, what did you think of the film? Write it down in the comments below. And please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle's right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.